final part of the meeting, but maybe most intense. So we have few hours to discuss what we dream it would be our global cost experiment, what we think should be. So Nadia will put some information on the table, will introduce, and then I think the main objective, as you will see, is to understand how to select the sites and which could be the sites. We have seen several proposals this morning and today, and how to describe them in the coming weeks, and then how to start to work together. So please keep focus.
Thank you. Sorry for being a bit late, but it was very interesting. And these meetings are done to get to know each other, and the problems are evident when you see the person talking. This is global cost. We call it one word. I've been told by my co-chair that I have to say one word, global cost, all attached, no experiment after. Personally, I like the experiment after, but it's okay. And so there is a subtitle, the Global Coastal Ocean Experiment. So at the General Assembly of CoastPredict, we launched the idea. We launched the idea of an implementation strategy. We already have an implementation strategy on the web for CoastPredict, but we thought more practical, something that can push us. Now it is, CoastPredict was 2020, now it's 2023, and we have done a lot of planning. We need to act. Now it's time to act. And so we have done the methodology step. This is my butterfly, I call it the butterfly methodology approach. And so we've done a methodology step, and I should thank all the people. We have the focus area projects that have condensed the questions and put them in a good way that can be tackled from a scientific technological point of view. Now we thought we need to have a localization, because if we continue to talk about the many places and so on, and just talking and comparing this way, we want now to hands-on compare them and understand how to use them in the future in a better way in dedicated areas, demos areas. So we have to finally get to about 20 world ocean coastal areas where we demonstrate that we have best practices, we have standards for observations, models, integration. And the end is to arrive at coastal resilience against natural hazards, climate change, all the problems that we have seen, blue economy. And so then we like to also reopen after this demonstration experiment and generalize. So this is the part where we will get the standards, right? We will say, we will work in contrasting areas, and then we will use a common methodology, and it doesn't matter which model, right? It matters a little bit more which observation, but let's say which model doesn't matter. It matters that we use a procedure. We know how to downscale. We know how to make 3 models nested one into the other and why it is necessary. And we know to use AI to solve the problems that we know can be solved much better by AI. So we have to arrive at the end of the decade with a new global coastal ocean concept and standards and so on. Okay, so you know the key issues. Very briefly, I've already shown this, so, but not to you. So key issues are that we can't isolate the coastal areas too much from the global ocean, because in this beautiful paper, they show that part of coastal sea level that is due to steric effects in the open ocean propagates at the coast. Now we have seen Rodrigo says, oh no, it doesn't matter, because he uses a two-dimensional model, a barotropic model. Well, this doesn't happen so often. In certain areas, doesn't. But it may be some areas. So we should decide, because a barotropic model is very fast. And Rodrigo likes the barotropic model fast, so he can do his AI after, right? But, you know, it's not a choice that we can take every time. Okay. And so that is conclusion. Solutions that did not use observations across shelf, first observations, and fully baroclinic nested model cannot be fit for purpose in a generic way. So then we have the salt intrusions. These are salt intrusions. We have no observing system for salt intrusions coupled to the runoff monitoring system, and maybe the water quality, since we are talking so much about water quality when you are dominated by rivers. So we know that river monitoring modeling should be developed that consider the proper connected dynamics. Okay, but we don't start from scratch. I can tell you, since you see my age, I have been from 2000 to 2008 in a very nice group, which was called COOP, is the Coastal Ocean Observing Panel. So we met for 8 years and we wrote 4 different reports and papers where we defined the common or essential variables that are required for a coastal ocean. And, you know, it was at that time. Now we can start from that and increase, because there are some missing issues there, the atmospheric forcing, which now becomes even more important in climate. Since the river do not discharge anymore, it is the atmosphere that discharges pollution. So, we start from a list of what we call the common or essential variables for the ocean. We don't start from scratch because we have the global models and the regional models in some areas. And they are open and free. It's a public good system. And I hope the DCC on ocean prediction will organize all the other systems that are open and free with common format, so we just use them, okay? And this is the my best wish, and I haven't talked recently to Pierre and Enrique, but I mean, the best wish is that they can organize these global data sets for us so we can use them in the coastal area. This is our requirements. I think we should tell them, yeah. So then we came after the the General Assembly to a final statement. We already discussed the General Assembly of CoastPredict, the goal. The Global Coast will implement the CoastPredict projects and guidance principles in a range of contrasting global coastal oceans to demonstrate the value of an integrated, let me put this on so I can see better. Very nice. Okay, yes. To demonstrate the value of an integrated observations and models and fit for purpose coastal observing and prediction system that delivers products and services for coastal resilience in collaboration with local stakeholders. Okay, so this is our goal, and we have to demonstrate that we can do. We have to implement. Now, the concept of the global coastal ocean, as I said, is written already in, I've said it many times, in 4 volumes, where there is an accurate description of what is the global coastal ocean. And these people, they started to classify 32 regions that are mainly differentiated by open ocean dynamics, but not only. There is geomorphology, there is biogeochemistry, a bit of ecosystem, and so on. And you can see the eastern sides of the ocean, the western sides of the ocean, some semi-closed sea polar regions. Okay, so we believe that we could start from this. And there is a very nice classification, means it's done scientifically. So the first step is that we have to identify these regions. We could use these regions to talk about and the test sites by using a survey. So you will receive, unfortunately it's not ready yet, as we decided in a global assembly, we're not too late. We are about 1 month late with respect to the deadlines that we set in the General Assembly. But what we propose is that to ask you to fill in a survey, not too detailed. You will see now some of the issues, and find where is your region, not coastal area or test site, region where you belong to with respect to this classification. And we will also send out the classification. Okay, so we are building a test site identification matrix. Some of these elements are will be in the survey. We would like to ask you the ecosystem, the hydrological and oceanographic characteristics of your area, the socioeconomic and demographic characteristics with some, detailed components, presently available technology and infrastructure in the area, and then the challenges, expected outcomes. What do you expect from having a test site, a global coast test site? Okay, so this will be you will not be asked to do everything in this initial survey, but just to propose the initial part. Second step is start implementation. And as I think it came very evident by looking at the last presentation of the morning, so from Felix, nowadays it's very important to think about the digital infrastructure on where to build this, because it becomes necessary. We are not anymore doing a test site where we collect the data only for the people there. We want to share the information. So we want to build a global coast digital infrastructure, which contains platforms that are related to specific test sites. This is the proposal. In this way, everybody from the different test sites will be immediately aware of what the other test site is doing first, and also you can concentrate on all the data already which are open and free in the test site and make them available for criticism while we do the experiment. We can't wait to do first the experiment and find out, oh, it was wrong, but we want to have interactive, and that is the way. So what is the global coast infrastructure in the global net framework? You know, we have a big framework, which is dealt with IODE and partially GOOS, which is called the Ocean Data Information System. It's early, but it's already there. So we have WIS2, which is the WMO Information System 2, which is internet-based, no GTS anymore. I know it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but it's gonna happen in the next 4 or 5 years, okay? So internet-based. And and by the way, it started because we showed that it was on a project that we did. It was called OpenGTS. And they found that as soon as they used the OpenGTS, which was internet, they started to get so much more data. And so, okay, so then, so in this global thing, we have WIS, WMO is contributing. We have national oceanographic data centers that are already connected in a loop. And this is traditional archiving data centers in our community, oceanographic community. We have the GDACs. These are the global data assembly centers where you get Argo specific technologies that have a lot of research still done. And they release the data also to the GTS, but they are specific centers. And we want to add global coast infrastructure, something that will be different, I think a bit more advanced, because this one will not be only internet, but will be cloud. It should have cloud. So on this, infrastructure, we're gonna actually show through the different platforms that we can actually compute, and that you don't need to bring the data at home, do it in your computer, but you could eventually run on a cloud. So our global coast infrastructure. And I think this is a very important step. So since today this plot was already presented, this is something that we elaborated at the European level. So you have global coast infrastructure. What does this contain? It contains many platforms for the different sites. Let's say the Philippines and the Indonesian archipelago. That's one region with 10 plus coastal models adapted to the different needs, okay? And this is at the end, maybe we start with 3 and then we go. Okay, so in these platforms, we have to have as a main target coastal observations and prediction products information. And we have to decide these formats and everything. And we have in CoastPredict a project, a core project that is called CORIS, that has already advanced in the planning of the requirements. Then we also have to have on-demand models, data analytics, and user-oriented transformation, I call it, whatever is needed. Simple user transformation. You take only one area from all the data that you have in the platform. Okay, take only your area, but it should be allowed. Why do you have to transfer, if you want to transfer all the data there? Then you have demo, end user tailored products and decision support system for coastal resilience. And another main target is to have training and outreach material already on the platform. And I think this is key, that as soon as we develop in one area, we think already what is the documentation that we need to have to explain to others. One, can we do a tutorial on how we designed this implementation, this observing system? Okay, so this is a very important step that we need to start soon. And 2024 is maximum time we can allow ourselves. And we have to think, where are the different digital test site platforms located? I don't know, but it's DTSP. So the time scheduling that we just, sort of have written at the General Assembly is that we have this 2023-24 to have an analysis of 5-10 region test sites, region/test sites. We should have a better name. We should have, but I've been advised to use regions/test sites for the moment. with existing focus area communities, so it means you and CoastPredict scientific steering group, in any case, the people that want to contribute, and then develop the scientific plans and the DTSP implementation and the funding also. We have to see what happens. In 2024, we could extend to a larger community. And then here, we start to implement on the basis of acquired experience, let's hope. In the phase 2, we have to have a moment in which we stop implementing. There is a little bit of mismatch on my dates because it should be 2023-25 is also the implementation, and 25-26, we have to assess. We have time to do a first assessment, and we should do it. We should also start to intercompare the test site experiments. And then the third phase where we can expand and we can see what is that we have done wrong, that we can change because we still have time, and then legacy. Just to be, and then one more, I have, this is Flame Workshop overall idea for climate downscaling of areas. You start to see that in some cases, the climate downscaling need to get very large areas that are 4 or 5 of the global areas that we said before, the 32 sites. But there are also areas of climate downscaling that are much smaller. I like this one, for example, this, and they're really coastal. And this came out of the discussion that the Flame Workshop had. And so now I'd like to open our discussion in PredictOnTime on offering your area. Then we will collect with a survey. This is an initial discussion, and offering, to do the experiment with a discussed procedure. So that means that, for example, one, not procedure, but experiment, we say, we have to deploy this observing system to check the models for 2 months. I don't know, I'm thinking because I did it for another area for 2 months. Or maybe instead, I want to do it for 2 months because I have a strong seasonal cycle, so I need to do it 2 months in winter, 2 months in August, and so on. And just to offer our initial idea. In the Mediterranean, we have this. We have these models, and then we have these models. So this is the exact, the same, Aldo gave me the idea to show again this picture. But in the Mediterranean, we decided to do 2 downscaling to arrive at the coast, having already the Mediterranean regional model. Okay, and some of these models did not last. They have a nice paper, and some others lasted. They became much more fit for purpose, and they're actually running operationally. Well, the big Mediterranean one is running operationally, but not only. You have seen, for example, the Psychophos, which is now taking this area. Before it was taking only this area. And it enlarged, it became and remained operational and is actually doing the work that George was showing. So when, in my opinion, if I had to say, Mediterranean is one region, and it will have 5 or 6 test sites. This is the idea, right? And we have to think about, we have to go from regional structure to the coast. We can't go from global to the coast. It's a bit too big of a jump. Okay, so for climate and not only. Okay, so this is the idea, and I hope we can discuss, I don't know where to stop. Yeah. So we can discuss, if we can get your ideas. Does it seem feasible? Is it something that we can do in the next 7 years?
For me, is very feasible. Well, it's feasible. I like the idea of starting from the 32 regions because somehow we need a framework. My experience in this year and a half of Predict on Time, since we get, let's say, we submitted the proposal, already in the submission of the proposal, we started to select some sites, but very randomly. Let's say people reacted positively, so we were very open, and we already covered a lot of this region, or inside each of them. Now I think we need a sort of criteria. So if we start from this 32 region, I'm sure that we will be able, just counting the people of this meeting, the people of the kickoff meeting and the initial list, if they confirm, we will have several sub-sites inside most of the regions, maybe not all of them. So, and I think it's a good approach, because then, of course, that within that region, each of that region, there is homogeneity somehow, no? It's logical. So the cooperation within the region will be facilitated. And on the other side, I'm sure Predict on Time and CoastPredict will launch activities like capacity building and training, which will be cross regions and standard best practice. So I think it's doable, let's say. It's challenging, but doable. But
yeah, I have two questions or comments. Would the aim be then to have, for example, one localized area within each of these, you know, well, here there are 32. So if we want 20 by the end of the decade, then, you know, we maybe select 20 of these and then have one, you know, focused area or localized coastal zone within each of these, because obviously this gives a great, you know, global coverage. So is that kind of where you're going with this?
I'm not sure one. You know, in the Med.
Because yeah, this is what you were saying about the Med, that it could be 5 or 6. But then if you have 5 or 6 in the Med, then you're maybe only going to have one in the whole of Asia. Exactly.
No, because the 20 test sites, I mean, the point is that we change the nomenclature while we are. So the test sites at the beginning were the big regions, not the coastal ones. Okay.
Yeah. So you could have actually, I don't know, 100, let's say cities, coastal cities.
That's
just
right.
to give a, you know, a visual thing in the whole global coast.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we are UN decade, so
yeah.
If we can do, I think I would love to have 100.
Yeah.
If I do the platform, I think we can do it.
Yeah.
And I establish the standards to have the data available and to have the tools available. Yeah, I think I can.
I just had one more question, if that's okay. So I remember in Bologna in January, we were thinking about this criteria for selecting demo sites. And there was also a point about having some locations that have a lot of data and others that do not, so that we cover, you know, some places that will be a lot easier to represent or to
Yeah,
then
so in fact, we tried to take that point, which was very important because we need to show success somewhere,
Yeah.
otherwise it's too difficult to get.
Mhm.
We took it by asking, what is the infrastructure present? Oh, where is it? Yeah.
It was this
Presently
one,
available
yes.
technology infrastructure.
Mhm.
So in that one is status of coastal monitoring and
Okay.
observing system in that area, what
Yeah.
numerical modeling, projections, atmospheric forcing, all these, that will give us an idea
Mhm.
of what is the state. And
And is the idea to kind of really have a blend of all of these different, basically make sure that you cover some that, or first go for those that would be the easiest to represent, and then is there an order or?
well, we have to decide
Yeah.
the order.
I guess this is
not
open
to
to
do
discussion.
too much selection, except for having a discussion with the interested people and see what they really can do now in the first period, like 24 to 25.
Yeah.
And instead, if they want to prepare and do it in 26, but there are some places we can start already
Yes.
24, 25.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
23 even.
I hope is 23. We decide what this, and I wouldn't call it selection. At the beginning, we call it selection, right? Selection looks terrible. So I select. I say, oh, I like my area. So I would say on the basis of capacity, who is ready, who is not. Even in CoastPredict, we had this Flame and PredictOnTime were ready. So their core project went on, but we don't have one on integrated coastal management, for example, which is essential. But we don't have a core project there because this is something that has to be revised on the basis of already existing programs. While Flame and PredictOnTime is new. So, but also there is a lot of work done by the community. It's only fragmented and there is not a standard and so on. And so we need to concentrate on getting best practices on the table. And, but, we didn't say we don't want to do integrated coastal zone management. We said it's not yet the time. Maybe we will start that part after we have the test sites in place. So, yeah. So many coastal areas. I mean, I think it was interesting at the beginning in the Mediterranean when we had nothing. And we just said, yes, this group can do this. If you give me the model or learn how to do it, and the observations, we define the observations, we find the money for the observations because that you need to find normally, and we went ahead.
Yeah, Nadia, very short question to clarify. Do you envisage the coastal sites to achieve the same things, or you may have a clustering? Some coastal sites clustering to do something specific, another one, then the next stage, then combine.
Yeah, the second, I would say. I can't expect to have all these models have biogeochemistry, for example. I'm pretty sure we will need the biogeochemistry for all the sites at the end. But some are readier to get the coupled biogeochemical model or even get the pollution modeling for mercury, for example. Not everywhere we can do that, but it will be very interesting to have one test site where we get the whole chain. We did something like this also in Mediterranean.
And my second question is, you may end up having a coastal site, which is important to be in the first group, but there isn't necessarily the expertise within that site to execute. would you eliminate that coastal site, or can it be catered by other groups?
Okay, so the question is again, we need to, my personal opinion is that in 24-25 we'll have five region/test sites. And 3 might be ready, 2 are not. But you know, we are a community. So why we are together to discuss this? If we don't take on board to do, and we can try to find funding for this. I mean, it's not so difficult. We just have to prepare, know what we want to do, and then, yeah.
So we are quite rightly sort of talking about zooming down to specific sites and regions to cluster effort around. But I just wanted to also make people think about the bigger global scale picture and actually the advances in modeling, global modeling that are coming, that will be shelf-enabled global models. So global models with tides, which is super important, and the whole bunch of processes that will actually start to build up better pictures of change and vulnerabilities and stresses in places that we don't have any downscaled regional modeling capability. And thinking about the connectivity, the larger scale connectivity of the global ocean. So we should keep that in mind as the bigger picture that we are with
be ready.
Yeah.
I guess it's these models that will be with a detailed representation of the coastal area, but they will be global.
Yes.
They will come in 2 or 3 years.
So I have seen one run. I've seen the data, 1/4 of a degree, shelf-enabled global run of NEMO. 10, 15 years of data is ready. They're preparing the paper. And the next step will be take that to 10-kilometer resolution. So I mean, that's coming fast from a couple of groups.
Oh, even more than 10 kilometer. There will be, you've seen at Flame, the Max Planck unstructured.
Yeah, also that. Yeah, that's very
That's
cool.
what I mean. The global unstructured grid with a resolution of 10 kilometers around the coast and 25 in the center. So in the big basins, yes. But there are two thinking here, two thoughts, two things. First, they will not have the coupling with the land yet, and for a long time. And then one thing, and so we have to add that part. And the other one is we have to enable the people in their coastal area to do it. It's not possible we are, a group of people saying, we are together because we give you our model output. This is not the right way. So personally, for me, is the essential, has always been for the Mediterranean, enable the coastal communities to deal with the problem they have at different level. If their capability at the moment does not exist to their own observations and modeling in coastal area, fine, we help them to arrive at that level. So this is the right level. And certainly we have to take the global at the maximum level of accuracy that we have.
An online question or comment? Can you show up? Could you show up? Yeah, then I go to you. Is anybody online wants to talk?
Oh, no, that's mine, so I cannot see.
Excuse me, can I say something?
Sure, George, please.
Yes, so I fully agree with the proposition of Nadia to have, say, these 20 some regions, and within the regions to have as many as possible smaller coastal, say, forecasting and monitoring systems. And I think this is it will be very good because we'll bring in the project those systems that they are ready to start to provide and to give the demonstration. And then after this, other places, they may just join the system. Because we know, I mean, for the Mediterranean, we speak, you know, even better than me. We know who is running the system at coastal or sub-regional and can provide, say, the first successful demonstration of the system, but not only in the Mediterranean, in the Baltic Sea, in the Black Sea, since we know partners from there, and also you and CMCC is involved also in the Black Sea. So I fully agree with your proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, George. We try also with Christina. She wanted to say something. Christina, we want to try the microphone again.
Does it work now?
No way, as it was yesterday. So you can call me on the phone as yesterday.
So you can hear me, I guess.
No, it's bad. Call me on the, you have a problem with the computer. Call me on the phone as we did yesterday.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, there is Stefano.
Maybe just a stupid question, but since the meteorological world is usually ahead of us of several years, I don't know if they had this kind of problem, and if so, I think so. How they tackled it, it would be maybe interesting to watch how they tackle this kind of problem. So local systems for the atmospheric model, because they have the same kind of issue. I think maybe they don't have the cost, of course, but I don't know.
They do, but they try to forget about the cost.
Yeah, so I don't know if they have if they had this kind of problem, how they solved it. It's just a hypothesis. I don't know if we can steal from their experience. I don't know.
Maybe ask Antonio if he wants to say something about the limited area modeling.
First, I need to understand the question. What exactly is the question?
The question is how they tackle this this problem of linking local systems and have a global view of local systems.
Well, the evolution of the meteorological forecasting system has been quite different because in some sense, the global part started first. So the global forecasting system were established. So they came first. And then the issue was the regionalization at, you know, mostly dictated by resources. So people that could not run the global forecasting then started the regional modeling part. So it was exactly the opposite of what is happening here. So first there was the global capacity. So the boundary conditions were available. So that immediately developed in that sense. So boundary conditions were provided by the global centers that were producing the initial condition and the data simulation and everything. So it started their way. Now, if you look in Europe, for instance, there was an even different situation because the ECMWF became the center for the global. It started as the center for medium range weather forecasts, but quickly became the place for the global forecasts for all the nations that hadn't really developed a global capacity themselves. So then the issue was how you balance responsibilities between the global places and the national responsibilities, especially when the global capacity were reaching the scale of the regional models. So they were overlapping. For a long time, there was very clear separation responsibilities. So the global scale was not, didn't have enough resolution to really treat the local problems. So local problems were responsibility of national authorities.
Which is our case.
That's what I mean. Then when the situation is under discussion right now, when now there is an overlap of capacity, And so in theory, the global models are capable to reach a scale that used to be the regional scale just a few years ago. So that situation is under development, but mostly it's not a science issue. It's an administrative and organizational issue.
Governance issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can say, because I got confused, Antonio, a little bit when you started to talk, I think it's very similar to what happened in the atmosphere. Maybe you had a longer time for the global models to play a role, but it's not to play a dominant role. But it's not even true, because in the 70s, in Yugoslavia and there were already limited area modeling. There was already limited area modeling, and it was, you know, a development that was required to get more resolution. So I think it was very equivalent.
Not really. Forecasting started as a global problem. So that's why I'm saying it's different.
Okay,
so
I see.
Forecasting started as a first hemispheric, then global problem. So the forecasting problem was established as a global problem. Then there were resource issues. So people start to develop the concept of limited models. And there was a whole long story to establish they were just as good as the other ones. So I think it's different here, because it looks to me that it is the local coastal models have been in use much before than global ocean predictions were actually established. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, it's true. Because the engineering community has been using coastal models from a long time. Yeah,
exactly.
You're right.
So what I mean is that what this means is that there is a body of knowledge and experience and capacity well established in that, someplace, with their own set of culture and values and methods and so on. And then there is another thing that's happening, that you're coming in with a global capacity, and then you're talking with this community that, of course, is not really used to interact with this other sort of scope, and so you have to manage this communication gap.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to put it. I mean, it's so different from how I would have said, but it is true. So we had coastal models from a long time. Coastal engineers have done this for the past 30 years. The point is that they were doing it without having the global, and they were putting measurements at the open boundaries. They were doing, different things. I just want to say another thing. Scientifically speaking, atmosphere has a scale, the cyclones, that is 1,000 kilometers, right? Then the front maybe is smaller, but we are talking about 100 kilometers. Some of our issues derive from scales that are less than 10 kilometers most of the time, much higher. So it's like when we discovered the mesoscales in the ocean, that people were surprised. So much different velocities and actually going opposite direction everywhere. So the ocean is much more turbulent. And I think that when we, and this is why there is life, by the way, but in any case, there is so much life, there's so much life. And so this approach has allowed the two, the global and the regional, to go in a separate way. The first ocean forecast was done in 1982 in the California Current in 100 by 100 kilometer square, 1982. And it was this piece. And, if you do this in the atmosphere, it makes no sense, really. So, yeah, sorry.
I try to give the floor
too much.
to Christina.
I speak too much. Yeah.
Christina, do you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay. So I have to comment on many of the issues that have been said here. Mostly, I'm coming from an application point of view. Since I work for the Coast Guard search and rescue, we assist people all over the world. And so whoever calls us anytime, anywhere, we try to assist. For that, we need the surface currents and surface winds so that we can drive our drift modeling. And we have problems in many areas of the world, so it's what's being said here. And so I was wondering if adding to somebody's comment about areas where there is no data or not much data compared to other areas where you have more data, I was wondering if it would be good to have a place like where we have a lot of problems, like in the Pacific. Is that considered, are those small islands or atolls considered coastal? Since they're in the middle of nowhere, but they have coast too. So the high resolution models make us drift, give us solutions, probability maps of people just being completely in one place and they're found in another place. So we have to do all sorts of things to try to find them. And so I was wondering if that might be a place. I mean, I'm an applications person. I'm not. I cannot do the modeling part, but that might be maybe something that can be considered as part of either test sites or in the future. And another comment that I talked with Gio before is, would it be good to have an on-the-fly relocatable model for this type of cases? Is there anyone that would do that? Is that in the plans to deploy a model when there is a need, and then don't use it another time or use it as test later on, but something that is flexible. So that's my other comment I have, okay. About this topic, I have these two comments. I have other comments about others, but I can wait on that.
Thank you, Christina. I think you have a strong argument. I mean, you have a use case, U.S. Coast Guard, which, of course, it's not only coastal, but it's most of the accidents, I'm sure, that you can intervene are in the coastal area, and Pacific could be one site or one region. Then that's my answer. So the first question is yes. And the second is just
most 95% of our cases are not 20 nautical miles from the coast, but wherever those coasts are, could be an island, or it could be, the continent, the continental US or Europe, but it could be islands too. But 95% of our cases start there, and not 20 nautical miles, so it's really coastal.
On-demand models will be a key result of CoastPredict.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no doubt about this. On-demand models.
Okay.
I hope
Yeah, I give the floor to João.
Thank you. And my comment actually links very well to that, because two things that makes me think is standardization and best practice, and about common infrastructure. So standardization is nothing new. So it makes easy to link any model results to the final user, because once you have everything kind of same format, you just can develop your tools around this. And I think that's something that we should be discussing together with other groups, because things like Godai back in the past that became OceanPredict, they have been talking about that for 20 years. Synops, for example, that Yosuke is organizing the ocean simulations, the global ocean, observations, simulation experiments. Yeah, we have been discussing a lot about how we're going to standardize the results so it makes easy for other people to analyze. So we need to have this cross-pollination between all the different actions and projects from the decade. So, because this makes no sense to just, each group to do that by itself and just redo things. And about infrastructure or how we exchange data, that's a problem that's not new. And projects like Pangeo have been trying to deal with that, what also links to the cloud. So Pangeo started with the whole idea to have this tools that link it to cloud storage and anyone can access. So maybe it's a lot about us getting to discussion, these groups, or inviting these groups into the discussion, yeah, and develop things as a group.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe so.
I have a question or a comment, let's say, about how we would interface or approach with the different level of maturity of the region. For instance, we can have a region that has already a strong capacity of modeling, forecasting, or observing capacity. We would add, let's say, a further piece, or we would have an homogeneity between the different region. So we would have a test case that are fit for a specific purpose, that we add some other physics, some other physics that are not included, or the test case will be harmonized between the different region. So I think
if you ask me, I think we should definitely harmonize between the different test cases in one region, for example, if that is not done already, but we definitely have to add in a region with test cases what is needed. For example, if there is no capacity, again, I repeat, on pollution or in biogeochemistry, then this is if the people that work in that region, because this is, we have to form also the group with the people working in that region, decide that this is their priority. We're going to do that. There's no, way that we can impose another. Yeah. So here, the new thing with respect to these other groups is that we have a test site platforms for the different coastal region / coastal areas. Because that has not been, and we want to follow the same standards Siemens has, for example, because even though OceanPredict has discussed, but it is Siemens and IMOS that have made the data available to everybody. So, and NOAA too, okay. So now we need to have them harmonize maybe among themselves, because there are some choices that have been made and they are different in the different parts, because in Siemens, for example, we give interpolated data. We don't give the native grid data, which for our coastal models, in some cases is an issue. So, and I was at WMO. I'm vice president of the Information and Commission of WMO. So I was there because there was a management group. And the discussion that we had there was to get the native grid from NOAA and from ECNWF. So I think we should start earlier than, WMO was such a big experience, and now it's talking about giving native grid, and it is difficult now to go back.
In the Mediterranean, 10 years ago, even more, we did a project. It was for oil spill multimodal forecasting, and then it didn't really. It was a success, but it didn't last after that. So we had to restart the wheel again, but for different, more political reasons. But it was a shared environment, and basically we develop and agree on common format. net CDF, also for pollution. So we were exchanging, but the most important things we were exchanging was the ocean circulation models. So we had nodes basically in the region you were showing. People were exposing in a common format the data set on internet. It was not a cloud at that time, but it was while there was a central system with application, in that case was OSP, that was accessing the portion of the data was needed. So it was already a cloud approach, and then run, in that case, the OSP simulation. So I think we of course, the common format, as you were saying, is the basic. Otherwise, we don't exchange it. Interoperable service today really are available, so we can exchange, we can expose API and services in a common way, so that people will be able to uptake your data and visualize on my platform. So I think,
for example, we are grown out of AirDAP, right? AirDAP is a very now solid system that can be used. I believe there is something more to be done, but we start from that. And then so we say in each area, the people that want to share their data, they have to put it on their server and then have it, so have it on the cloud. And so then the two can work, and somebody doesn't want to have AirDAP on their computer has to, can access the cloud, but then, so, I mean, there are still issues, and these are also there are issues like connected new technologies like blockchain and so, which we better take immediately a due course, because they are very important for knowing the version of the data, and yeah, so because that's a big problem. So if we don't build this infrastructure, and the test sites, we will not be able, I think, to grow. So the thing that we are adding is that the coastal sites and the regions will have a dedicated effort to accumulate data and to share data with common standards. Okay.
Just to continue a bit on this part of the discussion, but perhaps making it more focused, at least from my point of view. But earlier, Nadia, you said that you are very much keen to enable all the coastal sites to evolve, to improve, to reach high standards. But probably it will not be possible for each coastal site to really do everything. You cannot have full expertise, full excellence in everything, everywhere. And this brings me to the point of therefore mentioning how this could evolve in a slightly different way, of course, with the target always of serving the coastal sites and beyond, but not necessarily by reaching highest excellence in everything, everywhere. So, I mean, this is why I was asking you about whether you have this clustering approach, in the sense that, I don't know, let us take an example. If you have a SHIFM coastal modeling that has evolved at CMCC, why should it be done again somewhere else? It should be applied somewhere else. And perhaps with your expert, so I mean, the question is, do we need to repeat in all the places, or else exploit our effort to build a common?
But this is the experiment. This is exactly the experiment. So we can't say, to do this coastal area, you have to use SHIFM. If you have your model, but if we decide that the boundary conditions have to be done in a certain, we had already this discussion, have to be done in a certain way, you have to collect them and then do your boundary, your domain for your, or you have to privilege the river, for example, for your domain. So these are the discussions that we need to have, in addition to the observations, I have to say.
But
Where
one group can do Shaifen for many other places. And then somebody else does something else for a group of places. I mean,
but there are others. For example, there is the model that Joanna showed. There is a fully coupled wave, currents, and sediments. So the diversity during the experiment, that's why I want to call it experiment, is very important. We have to really check that our models can achieve, but not to find the best, but eventually to use a multimodal approach, because at the end of the day, the uncertainty is going to be large. And I need to do probabilistic forecasting, impact forecasting. So it's good what you are saying, but we can't, like in the Mediterranean, we said, oh, all the coastal model will be POM. At that time, it was the only open boundary primitive equation model. So it was, we had no discussion. And so.
Excuse me, can I say also my opinion?
Yes, please.
So I just follow what you said about the multimodal approach. Also what Giovanni he has mentioned about the Mendes for MS project. And I think that, yes, we need to have, say, a multimodal approach, even for the hydrodynamics. Also that with CMCC, we are using two different models. It's the NEMO model. You are using the NEMO model for the provision of the hydrodynamics for the oil spills, while we are using the POM. We know how good are the predictions because it is necessary to give the confidence to the response agencies, or in general, the national response agencies, that what we're going to provide is very close to the truth. So by having, say, a multimodal approach, as we have done in the Mendes, and we can show that our forecast, different models, different hydrodynamics, they can do the job and they can act correctly. Just to remind that during the Mendes, also, we harmonized 27 different models, hydrodynamics, waves, and meteorological forecasting. As well, we have used 4 different oil spill models, and we have harmonized also the data that they are in and out from these models, and even this SAR data. So I think that the Mediterranean community, at least, had the capability and the know-how to improve what we have already done and to spread this further to other regions, if it consider that it is useful. I mean, as you said before, we will not start from the scratch. We have the knowledge to go forward and do what is necessary to do. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I agree. Multimodal, diversity, and I hope diversity also observations to and procedures to check the models. Yeah, we need to. Millions of experiences where you need to have that before you decide. I mean, actually, you can't decide to just continue and do the multimodal, because to find a perturbation method to get the ensemble is not so simple.
Nadia, just a curiosity, did you have, for another point of view, do you think that in every test site it will be possible to consider different geomorphological coastal aspects? For example, In one site, in one test site, you choose one rocky coastal system, one sand soft bottom system, one river. Clearly, in every test site, there are different, in every region, there are very big differences between the rivers, between the soft bottom and so on. So there are several common elements in all the test sites, or all the test sites are very different also in the choice of the geomorphological issue, anthropic structure, and so on.
We want to have the diversity, but we want to have the also community there to do it. So it can, you know, we could think in an experiment to go in an area that where nobody is interested to go, or we don't have the community. And then since coastal areas are connected to nations, it's not like in the middle of the ocean. So I think that we start with the users, and I'm pretty sure we have a good variety. And then if something is missing, we can say, okay, we are missing the soft beds, and we are gonna do a specific experiment for the soft beds here. Do we agree? Then the people of the dark coastal area agree that we can shift that your area in another area. So sure, that will be the best. And so the butterfly will work, because at the end we can have a synthesis. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify, Aldo, your comments about wall capacity developments. Yeah, this kind of links to everything that's been discussed about, you know, especially Juliet, what you're doing too, and observations and models, how there's a very big difference between capacity development for modeling capabilities and observations, right? So were you meaning for both, or was it specifically for the modeling? Because I agree that modeling can be done, you know, if it's, especially if we have the infrastructure and everything can be run, or, you know, you can access whatever on the cloud. It can be done anywhere for any region. But then obviously on the ground, observations, that's where capacity development can be the most effective, yeah.
No, I was mainly referring to the modeling, but even with regards to observations, I mean, some observations can also be assisted by a transnational effort. You know, I mean, it's not necessary for every country or for every institution to have the monopoly to do that kind of observation exclusively in its own area. You know, we have to go to, I think, to a transnational approach. You are capable to measure better one parameter, another is capable to measure better a different parameter, because we need also to have to synergize and to have reliable collection of data. So it's not just of say, I want to do this, I want to do that, both for models and both for observations. So I mean, we need to go into some kind of approach which is different from what we have done in the past so far. We have to define it, but where we really share better the expertise of each other, and we do things for each other, not necessarily replicating each one of us what everybody has to do.
Yeah, I agree with this. And at the same time, I'd like to have that at the end of CoastPredict, we really have some strong recommendation on a minimum set of observing system that is required at least for validating, calibrating the models, at least, if not for data simulation, if not for the specific application. Yeah. And so this would be another additional point, because you know, we need to share best practice, but in the decade that we have to say, at the end, we know what to put in the coastal area.
And in addition, I like the idea of working together, but each group should be put in the condition of growing and really became independent, because then they have to talk to the stakeholder, the local stakeholder. And you cannot have the expert from Egypt going all over. So I think it's important that we really leverage the local expertise. So we need tools to do that. No, I know you are the master in capacity building. No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we break a moment the discussion. We have Antonio Navarra, who is giving us a presentation on a complementary issue. And then we break for coffee, and then we go to the last part of the session. Am I right? There is coffee break, no? So when we finish with Antonio, we go to the coffee break.
Oh, that's okay. Let's see. Okay. Discussing yesterday over coffee break with Giovanni and Nadia, it came out the issue of the adaptation fund. The adaptation fund is one of the funds that's been created under the UNFCCC convention, and happened to be on the board of the fund itself. So the idea was that maybe I should give you a brief presentation of what the fund does, because it may be relevant to the discussion that you were having. I didn't have the time to prepare an ad hoc presentation, but I will use these slides that we have used in order to present our medium-term strategy for the fund. I think I will give you a feeling for what we are doing. The thematic area of the fund are basically adaptation to climate change. So they cover a wide array of thematic areas. And they go from disaster risk reduction to adaptation financing, but you can see in the middle, they go for coastal management. So coasts are, and the coastal environment are one of our major priorities. And because, of course, this was a strategic document, this is the structure of a medium-term strategy. I think this is interesting for the way in which these things has been set up. We start from our mission. The mission is coming from the fact that the fund is serving the Paris Agreement, even if it was set up as an instrument of the Kyoto Protocol. But after the signing of the Paris Agreement, it has become an instrument of the Paris Agreement itself. So our mission is to serve the Paris Agreement by accelerating effective adaptation actions and access to finance. And I will show you how this is actually implemented. From this, we develop a vision that is basically aimed at developing countries. And so the idea is to help developing countries in constructing strategy, actually implementing on-the-ground project to increase resilience and help them to adapt to coming climate change. That's, of course, the goal is to improve livelihood, people, ecosystem, protect ecosystem, everything, so general good, okay? That's the path. So the strategy is based on 3 pillars that are basically action, innovation, learning, and sharing. And then we have a number of cross-cutting themes that are basically cutting through these pillars. And I want to point out a few of these cross-cutting themes. So for instance, promote locally based or locally led adaptation. This is a main priority of the fund. I will show you that we are pioneering a model of funding that is direct funding. And we are trying to avoid intermediation as much as possible. One of our team is the enhanced access to climate finance. We are a small fund in the climate ecosystem. Our budget now is hovering $1 billion. But the other funds are much bigger than that. The Green Climate Fund is, in theory, 100 billion, but at the moment is about 30. But is probably the upcoming Loss and Damage Fund, it's unclear how much it will be. So we're small, but we are actually there is a real issue of guaranteeing access to all these financing instruments that are being set up. So one of our goals is to enhance access to finance. And then there are a number of more socially oriented issues like empowering vulnerable communities, advanced gender equality, and of course, more operational objective like enabling scaling and replication of projects in various areas. So this is our sort of setup. And we are striving to basically come up with tangible results. So we have these 3 impacts indicator. We're looking at reduction of vulnerability in which we can actually try to measure in terms of reached beneficiaries or number of early warning systems that we have helped implement. We monitor the number of policies that have been implemented thanks to our actions. And we also have some sort of geographical measure of the geographical impact on the ecosystem. So we're trying to come up with the quantified indicators. So our mandate, this is our mandate. The mandate is to concentrate on concrete adaptation projects. So that is really important. The other thing, as I said, is direct access. What I mean by direct access is that funding goes to implementing agencies in the countries. We have a number of projects. We will be using UN agencies in the middle, but our preferred mode of operation is to actually fund projects that are coming from the countries that are implemented by agency or actors in the country itself. So this is our characteristics. I already said that, so I don't need to say this again. So I think this is probably most interesting. This is the kind of instruments that we have. We have single country projects that can be any size. We have a cap per country that is recently being raised about 20 million. So countries cannot get total more than 20 million per country. But then we have also regional projects in which different countries can actually participate together. And then we have different caps on that. And we have a number of other grants that are basically set up to prepare preparation of projects, to help the formulation of ideas. We also have now a new program to actually roll out innovative adaptation practices that have a size of about 5 million. And then, as I said, we also have learning grants that will help the process of learning, funding workshops and exchanges and so on. So now the rules are not much. The project must be concrete projects on the ground. We don't have prescribed sectors of approaches, so there is complete freedom to propose anything. There is no co-financing. We finance the entire cost. And as I said, we have direct access and so on. The multilateral implementing agency, that's UN speak for UNDP, UNEP, basically UN agencies, cannot be more than 50% of resources in a particular project. And as I said, we have a cap of 20 million per country that has not been reached by most countries. Only a handful of countries has actually reached that limit. Okay, I don't need to say much more than this. As I said, we are trying to focus pretty much on local action and local implementation. One thing that probably is worthwhile to mention, the way it works is that every country has a focal point. The focal point has to indicate the implementing entity per country that is allowed to present proposals. We have recently raised the limit. Used to be 1 per country, is now 2. Then the implementing entity has to go through a process of accreditation with the fund. And then once it's accredited, that means it has basically satisfied a number of condition on organizational administrative tools, they can actually present proposals. the accreditation is not a selection process, but more like a enabling process. So basically, if an entity is failing some of the criteria, we at the fund will actually help them to overcome those failure and eventually conclude satisfactorily the accreditation process. So the idea is not to select, but transfer good practices and as much as possible. As I said, we are working together with the other funds, especially with Jeff, and we are striving to get a collaboration with GCF. GCF is the Global Climate Fund. They're working on a completely different scales. And so we are now negotiating how we could cooperate. As I said, our aim is towards smaller to medium projects. And but this means that we can actually see the effects in reality, on the field, so to speak. I think I'll skip this. So I just want to leave you with this. This is our website where there is much more information. So if you want, you can actually go there and get more information on this. And of course, I'm available if you want that I can point you to the right places if you want more information and want to pursue this. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Antonio. I'm sure you raised curiosity the people, but
the idea is that in each region, we will try to exploit, and we will also help by the coordination in CoastPredict, UN and UNESCO IOC, to build these projects. Okay, if needed. So if needed, naturally, I mean, we can't say for everybody, but exactly. And I think that that will make, but with the structure of these hubs and the platform, I think it will be really possible.
Do you have a time frame of duration of the project, or is it flexible?
No, it's flexible. It's usually 3 to 4 years or something like that. The action ones are very
it's okay.
Yeah.
So would you give us the presentation? Is it possible so we can put it on
the website?
Yeah.
It's already on the web? Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Antonio, again. And we go for coffee break now. Fund to understand if we can build project for developing countries in partnership, and we will I think it's a good idea to start some concrete action. Gianni, possiamo proiettare?
Just, I took mine. Very good. Thank you.
Then, let's say we have the last hour of our discussion. I think we could starting from this one, or also the map with all the 32 sites. Yeah. So maybe we could try to understand which are the area of interest of this group today, and of course including the online participants, and then so try to start to see our coverage, our interest area today. Of course, we will recap from the presentation, but I think it's good if you want to show up and highlight in the map your area of interest, not in detail, but just if you want to comment on that. For sure, if I can start, let's say, we have a strong interest and I think good collaboration also in the room in the Adriatic Sea and also, let's say, in the Tyrrhenian Sea, but of course in the Adriatic Sea, we have already international collaboration going on with Croatia and with other partners. So for sure, for us, the Adriatic Sea and also the Tyrrhenian, Central Tyrrhenian is two areas of interest, very important. So if people, yeah. Well, black is not the best color, but
well, no, but what we
no, but it's evident.
Area 27, that's the area which is the Mediterranean, and within the Mediterranean is the Adriatic, right?
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, that's So it's just, I mean, it's not a commitment, and it's not, if we forget any area now, it's not that we will not be able to include it later, but it's just, I think if you like, it's a sort of exercise now to start to see how distributed we are, and if we are already covering some of the regions. Does anybody wants to comment? Maybe we can recap what this morning was said. George Diatis was mentioning, I don't know if it's still online, was mentioning the Levantine area, while Joanna Staneva was mentioning the Wadden Sea and the Ghana, part of the Ghana coastal region. Am I right? Yeah, she's. Ah, sorry, I don't see. Is there a question here? Oh, the Caribbean. Okay, sure.
So here's area 3, region 3. And we will come also with, and which coastal area?
Nadia, use the mic.
So is there any initial coastal area where you think we should concentrate? Yeah, I know, maybe.
Yes, we have it. Perhaps you remember that we have developed this coastal inundation forecasting projects, no, in the part of the Hispaniola Island, where there is the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and more Dominican Republic, no, or in south in Colombia and Colombia and Panama. This will be also an area we can easily implement, no.
Because
of course, then we will circulate the questionnaire to all of you, and these and anybody will be able to propose areas even in the next weeks or so. But it's just a starting.
Yeah. And what is the coastal area? Yeah.
So on the east would be the Bay of Bengal, and on the west would be the Arabian Sea. Wow, I think we got both.
Now, okay. So Bay of Bengal, but you want to, yeah, these are the two regional seas.
Yes, Bay of Bengal on the east and Arabian Sea on the west.
And the coastal?
Both coastal, yes.
Yeah.
So how is it made?
Sundarbans.
Is what?
It's called the Sundarbans for the Bay of Bengal.
Okay. So Bay of Bengal plus one coastal area, because now I'm not going to embarrass myself if you like.
It's SUNDARBN. Yeah, coastal area is fine. I'll fill up the form. SUNDAR.
D as in Domodossola.
BAN.
BAN. B as in Bologna.
That's okay. I'll fix it in the survey form.
Thank you. Yeah. Get it. Sorry, I apologize. This I'm gonna pick it up. Bad names on the. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. New Zealand, where are you? It's 31. Excellent.
And thank you. I'm actually curious about Area 32, Antarctica. So I'm just curious how to deal with this. That's kind of complicated and pretty international.
No.
Any idea?
No, bunch of different groups trying to do that, because I know several people have regional models for different areas of Antarctica. A lot of focus on Antarctica Peninsula and Weddell Sea and Ross Sea, but
The Ross Sea.
yeah.
So we have a group from Scripps that is actually active in Antarctica, but we have from Australia. We have Sue. Sue from Australia, that she came in CoastPredict to do a coastal area in Antarctica with ice and the ice sheet and the melting and so. So I would guess we will send a survey and I'll see what she says. But if you are also interested in some of these coastal areas.
Yeah, not me in particular. Yes, exactly. Because I know some people in New Zealand that have models and have been doing experiments specifically in the Ross Sea and Adelaide Land. So I can definitely connect the group with them and see if they're interested in participating.
Oh, many governments.
That's quite a lot of fishing around. Yeah. So lots and lots of people interested in trying to understand what's happening. Making money there.
So yeah, I don't remember now. Is you're modeling all the whole coast of New Zealand, right? Good.
So Nadia, sorry, for 27 area. Marco
Oh,
speaking. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But it's possible to introduce also several experiments in the Tyrrhenian Sea, because there is a very completely different shape of the seascape and the water arriving deeper rapidly.
No.
Yeah, more or less.
Where is the H? I don't remember now.
After the T.
Is after the T. Tyrrhenian. Yeah, that's better.
I have the power.
Okay, which region?
So I'm wondering, and I'm slightly concerned also about the Pacific Islands that are not covered.
Oh, they are not covered.
Yeah.
Not a bad. This is a bad one. No. It's a 33.
Okay.
We're gonna do it now.
So 33.
Yeah, because you can't miss it. I don't know if to put it here or there now. Yeah. And this is number 33.
Yeah. And I would say also number 2 for Florida, the Florida coast.
Now.
Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. For the Florida coast, where is the Florida? Sorry. Here, 2. Okay, so we're gonna get 2. Very nice. Okay, that's first. First region 33 is Palau. You want to put Palau? Do you want to put Palau? in 33?
Yes. And I mean, it can be the, you know, the Pacific Islands in general. I think it's, yeah.
Was mentioning the importance of
Okay,
Pacific
we
Islands.
put the Pacific Islands. There. Exactly. This is why I think we should be more precise on this, because, you know, they are very distant. So you have a coastal model practically on each of them.
Yeah.
If you want, some are close, but you have quite a few already. So,
yes. So what?
Oh, okay.
If we're wanting to think about expertise in the Pacific Island, particularly with modeling, PCOS and Jerome have kind of just employed a modeler, coastal modeler, to start with PCOS at SPC. So I would imagine that would be a good.
But let's not suggest that, you know, what? Yeah, suggest for the others, because we need to ask Jerome.
No, sure, but it could be nice to, at one point, maybe not now, but to put the partners that are proposing after the list of, so the partners that will contribute. Now, maybe it's too early, but
we just kept, yeah, but the survey is gonna be, you know,
okay.
just an idea of how.
Go.
Oh, I guess.
No. So there is a limited number of area in the Mediterranean. But so after a discussion with Aldo, we would like to propose